It was just an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I'd been tidying up some of the kids' stuff and I'd stumbled upon this book. I'd also just been generally mucking about and trying to work out which of the boys' toys I could steal. The book invites you to make dinosaurs that should not and could not exist. I studied the book, making weirder and weirder creatures. But that got me thinking, why shouldn't they exist? In this episode, we're going to make a dinosaur from bits of dinosaurs. We're going to do some sculpting, we're going to do some dremeling, we're going to do some airbrushing, which is exciting. And we're going to do some scrap bits of MDF and some nonsense to make a tiny dinosaur that shouldn't exist. That's the whole goal of the video. We're also going to talk a little bit about inspiration and where that comes from and what it's all about. But we're not going to really dwell on it too much. We're just going to get on with it. Here we go! Right, so I think it's best that we just get straight into it. I'm going to start by choosing our dinosaurs, and marking out where we're going to cut them up. Then it's time for the Dremel, and start by chopping away at the bits we want. Give the rough cuts a bit of a tidy up with a knife just to make it smoother. Then it's on to the next victim. If you are going to do anything like this, I'd definitely recommend some eye protection at the very least. And if you have got something like a vice, that can help for the fiddlier bits where you're trying not to lose an eye, or a hand, or a finger. This really does help because they just fling about and go everywhere, so do be careful. Oh, there you go. Once we've got all the bits laid out on the table like a high school science project, we're going to try and put them together again with a bit of gardening wire and some super glue. So we're just going to get our piece of gardening wire, probably only need one strip for this, and we're just going to use our pin vise little drill thing to make some holes in both the legs, arms, face and the body, and just secure that with a bit of super glue. To give the illusion that this thing was even somewhat plausible, I gave the dinosaur a bit of a wider stance. That way it looks like he can actually hold his body up, but even then it's a bit of a stretch. With all the bits firmly secured with glue, it's time to fill in those gaps. Right, now I've seen this done but I've never tried it before, so I'm going to fill out the bulk of the gaps with a bit of foil. So I'm just going to turn it into little sausages and then stuff it in the gaps to fill out the bulk so I don't need to use as much clay or green stuff in a minute. So I'm going to do that on all four limbs, and it ends up looking a bit like this, our shiny little boy. And now it's out with the clay. I say clay, I mean milliput. So this is like a two-part epoxy thing that you just kind of mush together, turns into this mouldable, malleable material. You all know what it is. But here I am just cutting it up and mushing it together as per the instructions, getting ready to model this into some sort of skin. Once we've got a nice homogeneous blob, I'm going to take bits of it and smush it onto the foil and in between all the gaps, just to build up the bulk so that I can start adding some texture. once we've got the big shapes on, I'm just going to start sculpting it into kind of muscle shapes in a way, and starting to smooth it out into the skin as well. It's the first time I've ever done this, so, you know, experimenting a bit. First up on the tools that I've bought and never used before, we've got these circle cutting tools for clay. Here I am just having an experiment, see what they look like. Trying to get some of the details in that I want into the skin shape. Lots of different sizes to add a bit of variety. I'm quite happy with that, so I'll give it a go. I wasn't as convinced when I started to do that, so I got on the legs that I cut off previously and started to push that into the clay to add a bit of the texture from there. Then I tried the circle cutting things again, but this time I lay a bit of plastic over the clay before pushing in the circle cutter. This added more of a rounded bevel to it rather than just going straight in cutting. And this added a much better texture to the clay. This came from a baking tip, so I don't know who actually gave me this tip, but it works really well. It looks quite good. I'm quite happy with the results. So, repeated that process for all 4 limbs, and then had to go making the jaw a little bit more cohesive, adding in some stipply effects to the skin there, and then we were ready for a bit of paint. The rattle can grey base coat dry, it's out with the airbrush, the other seldom seen tool that I'm going to use in this video. I did enjoy it, but I did struggle a little bit in places, you'll see anyway. But started out with like a mahogany for the underside to just add all the shadowy layers on the bottom. Move on to the first misstep of the airbrush, using a yellow to go over the entire model. Did not look good. Then I went over it again with an orange, which again did not help things. So we let that dry and then try again. This time went with a darker red and then kind of wanted to build up through the tones of orange to end up with a more natural look. It was at this point in the paint job that I thought, wow, this is actually starting to look pretty good. Maybe I'm getting the hang of this airbrush lark. Well, let's just see. To finish off the paint job, I added these mahogany lines on top. On one side they look great, on the other side less so, but we're going to roll with it. A bit more definition, I went over it again with the mahogany in all the pits, just to add a bit of shadow. Right, let's take a break from the build and take a little trip down to the local art supply shop in search of a bit of inspiration. They have this weird junk room filled with all sorts of just random stuff. Plastic bits and bobs, lots of spaceship potential there. Shells for more of a Lovecraftian horror nonsense, both of which I might make on the channel in the future. Who knows? Really just a quiet space to let the mind wander and contemplate some weird shapes and materials that you might not have used before. Sometimes it's that, sometimes it's films or games or a walk down a country lane, or of course that nagging feeling that says someone really ought to invent a new kind of dinosaur. Whatever it is. But hey, that's just what works for me. Let me know what works for you in the comments. Okay, back to the dinosaur. I'm going to build up colour on all the horns, claws and teeth from a light brown to a bone colour. Finally, to give this monster a soul, I paint the eyes black. I imagine this dino might work as a cryptid monster for an RPG or a tabletop game of some kind, so I thought it best to put it on some kind of a base. I used some of the scrap MDF from the local art supply shop and used the same pinning technique as before to stand it up. I've used this Vallejo earth texture on a bunch of minis in the past, and I love how it can look proper muddy. Really, it's just a case of splodge it on and smear it about until you're happy with it. My tip for getting this stuff to dry quicker is to pop it near a dehumidifier, really speeds up the process. Otherwise I found it could take about a day or so. To sell the muddy texture I'm going for, I liberally applied some dark brown contrast paint, then dry brushed a lighter brown on top. Brown texture done, I'm going to add some scattered leaf debris and a bit of moss to look like ferns. For the scattered leaf I'm just chucking it on with a bit of PVA really, and for the ferns I'm placing individual strands of the moss into little clusters. What to do is to paint the rim of the base black and it's ready for the table. Thanks a lot for watching, do consider subscribing, and if you've liked what you've seen, do the like and the comment gubbins down below. Have fun, look after yourself, ring your mum, bye.